Hello, this video is for service provider administrators learning how to manage the roster within Verasay. So let's go ahead and get started. Some quick topics for this video. We're going to be talking about navigating to the roster, adding members to the roster, and all of those subcategories are talking about the required fields when you're adding a member to your roster. Then we're going to talk about editing roster members, and that will include changing their password if needed and changing their status if needed. And then the last thing we'll talk about is searching for members within the roster itself. So this video is going to be mostly demo, so let's go ahead and get started here. Since this is an administrative task, we're going to be wanting to do this in the eam.verasay.com, and administrators should be wanting to do this task. So this is my sample service provider training Inc. company. And so the best way that you get there is to make sure that you're on the service provider tab here, and then this red area, which is called a ribbon, and then you click on the roster right there in the ribbon. So automatically, this will show you all of your active roster members. We'll talk about this filter in a couple of minutes here. So let's walk through creating a new user. Typically, as an office administration user, you're going to probably be wanting to create technicians. So we'll do an example technician, but I will show you some other options as well. So to create a new roster user, you click on this new button here. And so now you see all of these yellow-orange fields, which that denotes that it is a required field, so you must fill those out. Your address and your telephone number and things like time zone, all of those should pre-populate based on your company's address, but you can change them if you'd like. But that, like I said, it should pre-populate with the company information. So let's start with the first item at the top and work our way down, title. So the way that you get to the titles is that you click on this magnifying glass on the far right, and you'll get a pop-up window. And depending on who your clients are, you might have a super short list. You might have a list like this where you have 90 options. The only titles that matter is if you are setting up a technician user, their title must be technician. So I'll say that again. If you are setting up a technician, their title must be technician. If you're setting up someone with similar tasks as you, something in office administration, what you'd want to do is you can search this list in this cell here. You can just search the word office, and you'll see office administration, office manager. There are lots of different titles. Titles don't mean a whole lot except when it comes to technician. So let's search for technician, and then you choose it, make sure that it's yellow, and then click select. And that's how you get that field to populate. If I were to just type technician in there, it's not going to work. You have to do it using that magnifying glass feature. Okay, moving on. First name, so let's just make this generic. We can call this person Thomas. Last name, technician. Okay, like I said, the address and telephone number and things like that should pre-populate. If you want to add their cell phone number, you can go ahead and add it here for your own records. That's really helpful. It's not crucial to the system's functioning. However, it could be very important to you, especially if you have a lot of roster members on your team. You can very easily look them up, and if you need to give them a call, you'll have their cell phone number there. Okay, email, the next required field. The reason why their email address is a required field is because if they do not have an email here and they forget their password when they're on the site and then they click that forgot password button, there's no place to send that temporary password. So that is why the email cell is required. So we can say, as an example, he is Thomas at provider.com. And then this is kind of a cool feature. This is really helpful for email notifications for your work orders. So the cell says include with provider alert. So if you just leave it blank, that's fine. Or you can say no, and things will be the exact same. But let's say Thomas, for some reason, he needs to know about every work order notification. So it basically just copies him onto the emails for every work order notification email that the company gets sent to its global email address, but now Thomas can get it too. So that's helpful if there's multiple office administrators, multiple dispatchers. That could be a helpful feature for you if multiple email addresses need to be getting those notifications. Since he's just a technician, he doesn't need them, or you can leave it blank. Either or, doesn't matter. So let's go to this next field, which is role. And this is where I was talking about where title doesn't really mean too much. Really, the only one that means something is technician, and that's pretty general. The role is what gives this person their power, if they will. So the role defines what this person can do within the system. And in the same way with the title, you have to use this magnifying glass feature. So go ahead and click it. And same with title, you may have a super long list of things to pick from, or you may only have a few options, depending on your client, depending on how many clients you service. But it should always be the same regardless of the client. So if you're setting up a technician, their role needs to have the word technician in it. If you're setting up another office administrator like yourself, it could be external service provider, or could be admin, or something along those lines. That you can find in the welcome letter that you were sent originally. But like I said, it's typically pretty obvious. You should only have a couple of options shown for this example. I have a lot of options just because of the way I'm set up. But like I said, it should always be technician versus provider, or technician versus office administrator, etc. It should be very straightforward. So since I'm setting up a technician, I'm just going to pick this role, which is Whole Foods Market, and that's just because I was on this page, external technician. Great. So once again, you click on it, make it turn yellow, and then hit select. And then this is kind of fun. You get to pick their usernames and their passwords. So for this one, I'm just going to say thomas.tech, and his password I'm going to make verify1. But this is something that you do. So you make their username and you make their password. And then the final required field is this status. So are they active, inactive, has their account expired, too many failed logins, or disabled? These bottom three you shouldn't really you should never click on. Those are something that the system will designate. But for our purposes, you just need to know inactive and active. And so since Thomas is active, I want him to be able to use the system. I click active, and then that save button will pop up for me. So let's do a quick double check. We've done the title, first name, last name, his email. He doesn't want to be included with the provider alert, or he has no need to. I created a username, I created his password, and I made him active. So all I do is now click save. Oh, Thomas. So this is a perfect learning opportunity. So if this happens to you, it just means that this username is already in use. So thomas.tech is already being used. So let's do thomastech.training. Make it easy. And password, see how it goes to all of these, That means that you also have to redo the password as well. So it was a perfect learning moment for if that happens to you, how do you get around it? You just name them something else, and then you have to type in the password again. So let's try that. Save user. Wonderful. Perfect. So now you can see Thomas, technician, is in here. He has a role. Here's his username. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about editing roster members. Let's say Thomas quits this job, or he's leaving for another company, or some reason you need to get him out of the system. Unfortunately, there's no way to delete a user out of the system totally, but the best way to do that is to change the status to inactive. So if you make him inactive, he won't be able to log in. It's the equivalent of deleting him without completely erasing him. And so that's how you would do it, is make him inactive, save user data. And if you see here, back to the roster, he doesn't show up anymore. So this is another way. So let's say there's a user for some reason, a technician calls you, and he's like, hey, my password's not working, can you change it for me? And you don't see them on the roster. What you can do is double check by going in this filter uses by box and changing it to unfiltered. That means you're seeing all of the statuses. So it could be that this technician called and needs his password reset because he has too many failed logins. But you wouldn't be able to see him unless you change this filter to unfiltered. So when I change it to unfiltered, I can see a couple of other disabled users. So let's go back into Thomas, the one that we just made. Let's make him active again, save him, and see in the active he's still there. Wonderful. So we talked about changing status, so let's talk about changing password. So you as an administrator have the power to change your roster members' passwords, which is really helpful so if your technician in the field calls and has an issue with logging in, you can change their password for them. You can double check their username, tell them what it is, and then click this change password button down here. You'll get a little pop-up and you can change it to whatever you want. And then just hit save. And now Thomas has a new password thanks to you, which is great. So now he can log in from the field. Okay, another way to find users besides doing the filter, turning the filter to unfiltered, which is really helpful because for some reason they might have an expired account or too many failed logins or whatever, you might not be able to see them. So besides that, the other way to find your users really easy is by using what we call a wildcard search. So for my provider company, we only have 3 people on the roster, so I can see all of them. But let's say you're part of a big company and you have 100 technicians and you need to find them. What you can do is say, as an example, I need to find my technician and his name is Jason, but you don't know his last name. You just know that his first name is Jason. What you can do is called a wildcard search. So in this name area, what you do is you put the percentage sign, which that's a wildcard, and you can just type Jason. And then when you hit search over here on the right, what it will do is pull up all of your Jasons. And so then you can find the one that you need. Since I don't have any Jasons, there's no items in this list. But that, like I said, that is a very helpful tool for if you have a long roster and you need to change something or find someone for some reason. So those are the 2 ways to do it. You could do the wildcard search or changing your filter, both of which, or a combination of the 2 will do the trick for you. And that's about it for the demo. So let's quickly summarize the video. The Service Provider tab, and then the roster in the red ribbon, that's how you get to the roster. The yellow cells are required fields. Technicians must have the title of technician. That's really the one title that really matters. And then following up with that, roles should only be an admin or provider role for your office administrator type roles, similar to the one that you currently have, or technician. So it might have your client name there, it might say Walgreens or Whole Foods or BJ's or something along those lines, blah, 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 technician. So it could say BJ's technician, BJ's, or Whole Foods, Walgreens technician, etc. It could be many different clients, and once again, you can find that on the welcome letter that you were sent when you were originally set up in the system. From the roster, you can change the username and passwords of your users, but you cannot delete a user. You can only mark their status as inactive. And then ways to find your people in the roster, you can filter users by or you can do a wildcard search in the SMART table, which is the percentage sign. If you have any issues with any of these items, or there's just a constant error or something like that, some sort of technical difficulty, there's a VeriSafe support team, and we are 24/7 via phone or email. Our phone number is 866-402-2330, and our email is support@verisafe.com. And thank you so much for watching this video. If this video solved your issue, please click the thumbs up button on the bottom right-hand side of this YouTube video. It just lets us know that this video was super helpful and solved your problem. All right, thank you so much. Bye.